The legacies of the 1989 earthquake are not only a lot of holes in the ground, but also many insurance claims that remain unresolved. At a meeting last night called by Newcastle City Council Alderman John Tate, many of the 100 who attended vented their anger over their dealings with insurance companies for earthquake-related claims. Alderman Tate called the meeting to push for a federally appointed ombudsman to sort out disputed claims and to begin a petition that will be sent to Canberra.
There's a great deal of unrest and uncertainty amongst people who are making claims. There are many people who are just not getting anywhere and they feel as though they've come to the end of the line.
But at the same time, the Insurance Council of Australia has launched its own watchdog initiatives, a general insurance claims review panel and a complaints council.
The tribunal will be an impartial, free and fair claims dispute settling process for the consumer.
The format used to decide the Prestige Triples means there are no semis or finals, just an uncompromising win-loss record. It makes every game and indeed every shot a vital one, and some of the big names today crumbled under the pressure. The side skippered by young Cameron Curtis and featuring international Ian Schuback went into the final day with a flawless record of 4 wins and no losses. They came up against an equally determined Sam Laguza, and all of a sudden both sides had a 4-1 record. With the favourites stumbling at the penultimate hurdle, it was a question of consistency, and that's where the Valentine trio of Mick Beasley, Terry Stoddard and Gary Mason came into the picture. They were never less than businesslike over the 3 days, and went into their final game with a perfect record. Halfway through that encounter, they appeared to have the tournament parcelled up, as they enjoyed a commanding 12-3 lead over the Maitland team skippered by Bob Fishlock. 5 sides were left to battle out the minor placings, but the winner's cheque was all but on its way to Valentine.
No reason was given for the move in the announcement jointly made today by the Bishop of Newcastle, Alfred Holland, and the Principal of Pittwater House Schools, Rex Morgan. When Pittwater leased the land and buildings, there were 170 pupils. Today, there are 600 enrolled at the Junior Grammar and the Newcastle Boys and Girls Grammars. Today, Mr Morgan said the transition to local control would go virtually unnoticed, with teaching contracts and enrolments unaffected. Bishop Holland said he'll personally oversee the creation of a board comprising church representatives, academics and business and community leaders. The Grammar has just been granted development approval for a 2-storey, $1.9 million extension on the corner of Church and Wolfe Streets for a new junior school.
Babies seem to have a way of being the focus of attention, and this batch has been targeted by the New South Wales Cancer Council as the first of a smoke-free generation. While they haven't yet developed opinions of their own on issues such as smoking, health workers hope they can be protected from and spread awareness about the known scientific and legally documented dangers of passive smoking. Education begins at home. Tony, what can parents do to create that smoke-free environment in the home?
Well, Andrew, basically what they need to do, I guess, is regardless of whether they're smokers themselves or not, to make sure that their children aren't exposed to passive smoke, either at home or in the car. And I guess the further down the track as they get a bit older, contribute to the education of them to make them make them choose the non-smoking way as the easy choice.
Each child was given a T-shirt and an information kit about smoke-free environments. The Lady Mayoress, Margaret McNaughton, presented flowers to proud mums and this well-known dad, John Church, with new son, Robert John.
The federal government fast-tracked the construction of the new science building when several of the existing laboratories were damaged in the earthquake. It took just 8 months from start to finish, and students were able to move in at the start of this academic year.
It allows us to do teaching much more effectively than we were able to do before. It gives us the space, it gives us modern facilities which are of a higher standard than we've enjoyed before, and it's a great step forward as far as the university is concerned.
Leighton Contractors officially handed the building over today and gave university officials a grand tour.
The fact that it's made available today is because the builders, Leighton's, were able to deliver it very promptly for the start of this academic year, and as you can see, we're making very good use of it.
The 6 labs are used by students from all science departments, and the modern 3-storey complex will ease the pressure on the other buildings still being reconstructed. Professor Morgan says campus repairs, estimated to cost around $20 million, will be completed early next year.
It was a disastrous scenario. A severed gas line ignited, the flames fed by nearby fuel stocks. The drama may have been imaginary, but the flames were certainly real, and teams of 7 men were given limited water reserves and chemical extinguishers before being put through their paces under the watchful eyes of expert judges. The occasion was the New South Wales Mines Rescue Championship. 18 teams from around the nation converged on the Costain mine, all keen to claim the title. The defending champs were on their home soil, but that proved to be no advantage. The teams were also forced to simulate a difficult workshop rescue, with the victims doing their best to add to the tension. In the end, the Drayton Open Cut team was victorious, but as fierce as the competition was, that was hardly the point.
The biggest advantage we can get from this sort of thing is that the men are prepared mentally and physically for the real occurrence, plus are being examined by the specialists in the field, and they're cross-referencing it and saying, yes, your skills are what we would expect in the field.
Like the rest of the state, Labor members in the Hunter can only sit and wait. As the longest-serving member of State Parliament, member for Charlestown Richard Face thought he'd seen it all, but he could not have predicted the outcome of this election. Going against every opinion poll, Labor has regained all its traditional seats, including those in the Hunter, and is neck and neck with the coalition in taking government. Ironically, Mr Face believes Labor's success stems from its loss in the '88 election. He says Labor learnt a valuable lesson, one the coalition chose to ignore this time.
We realised that we'd become distant, we'd become arrogant, we weren't listening to the people, and we started that process again. I might say that the Greiner government, certainly in the last 9 months, have made arrogance an art form.
Newcomer Bryce Gaudry always believed Labor would claim back Newcastle, but he acknowledges that he has a lot of work to do if he is to retain that support.
I'm on a performance contract. I've gone into the job. I intend to work hard, both in terms of industry development and also in terms of the healthcare, education and transport needs that the people of Newcastle have highlighted.
Although the 50 drink drivers caught over 3 nights from Friday to Sunday were pulled over in Mayfield, Senior Sergeant Terry Devonshire from Newcastle Highway Patrol says the majority were not locals.
The addresses show us that they live in suburbs that are on the northern, southern and east and western, I should say, sides of the Mayfield Patrol. And so Mayfield Patrol is a through area for them.
Senior Sergeant Devonshire believes those who are coming from outer areas for a night on the town in Newcastle are parking in suburbs on the edge of the inner city. They catch a taxi or bus for the last leg of the journey and after a night out are returning to their cars, and that's when the problems begin.
And when they get around, say, Hamilton, the Junction, Islington and those type of suburbs, they pick up their car and they drive home. Now this is where the Mayfield Patrol have been having their problems.
Senior Sergeant Devonshire says 1,636 drivers were tested during the blitz, and of the 50 charged, half were caught on Saturday night. One motorist had a reading of 0.34, that's almost 7 times the legal limit. The Highway Patrol officer warns the swift kicks for drink drivers will continue.
This 3-day operation is only one of a series of 4. There are another 3 operations planned, and they will be along similar lines to the one that we've just had.
With the retirement of the sitting Labor member Alan Walsh and the dramatic redistribution of boundaries, Maitland has proved to be one of the most marginal seats in the Hunter. For Liberal Party candidate Peter Blackmore and Labor's Tony Keating, this is a nail-biting finish. The result may not be known until next week.
There won't be probably a final, the first preference count done until probably Tuesday or Wednesday, and then if it gets to preference it may be Friday or Monday next week.
Yesterday, the result of the primary vote was ALP 10,927 and Liberal 10,818, giving Labor a lead of only 109 votes. But today, party scrutineers estimate that after the distribution of notional preferences, the Liberals are ahead by 112 votes. Peter Blackmore remains confident the Liberal Party will secure the seat.
If elected, I will be the only Liberal member in the Lower Hunter Valley, and that places an enormous amount of importance on the seat.
The ALP candidate, Tony Keating, still believes he could scrape into office. However, he claims he would have had a more comfortable margin but for the increased informal vote.
I should find myself in a situation now with having a comfortable cushion to take me across the line, somewhere in the region of 1,200 to 1,500 votes. These votes have been classified as informal because they have a tick there and not a 1 next to my name.
Tomorrow, the returning officer and staff at Maitland will begin scrutineering the absentee and postal votes. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Australian eucalypts were once used to create hard-wearing, durable furniture, which we now call antiques. But the timber was hard and heavy, making it difficult to work with. Instead of persevering, Australians found it far easier to import timber from the United States and grow varieties not native to Australia.
Hardwoods are very heavy, they're very dense, and they move a lot with changes in humidity. So under traditional circumstances with traditional tools, they blunten the tools, and the movement pulls furniture apart in time.
In the next few years, however, we could see a re-emergence of Australian hardwood furniture, not in its traditional chunky style, but light, sophisticated designs like this.
The elegance and sophistication hasn't meant a decrease in strength, so we can confidently say to people that this is a durable product, but at the same time it's allowed new designs that have normally only been allowed in steel.
Peter Van Herk is carrying out research and development on Australian hardwoods at his workshop and gallery near Gloucester. With funding from the Timber Advisory Council, Peter is developing joints and designs which will allow the easy crafting of hardwood furniture.
Well, what we've done is we've decreased the size of the section of the timber so that the stresses are less, but as a consequence we've had to redesign joints, and the joints that we've designed have been orientated towards commercial production.
Peter prefers to keep joint specifics a secret, but most are interlocking, taking enormous stresses from the timber. Ordinary furniture this fine would collapse under the slightest pressure, but these specially developed hardwood pieces can withstand almost anything.
The furniture, we're having tested down in Tasmania. We have had some tests, and it looks like these chairs will be some of the strongest chairs in the world.
Peter hopes to give modern Australian furniture a design identity. The natural resources are abundant and now the woodworking techniques are being perfected. Although Peter sees the furniture selling in Australia, he believes the real market exists overseas.
Australian hardwoods are unique to Australia, and that if overseas manufacturers wish to make these sorts of designs, they're going to have to come here and buy our timbers. So we're hoping that in 10, 15 years people will see these sorts of designs and they'll say that looks like an Australian design because it's very fine, very elegant, very durable, no matter where it's made in the world, because essentially it comes from our resources.
If Peter Van Herk has his way, furniture like this with the durability to survive the coming decades will become the antiques of the future. The Hunter Valley Theatre Company's latest production is its first Shakespearean play in 9 years. But then one look at the set and costumes will tell you it's not strictly Shakespearean in style. Director Brent McGregor promises vibrant costumes and lighting and original music.
The context that we have of the fashion world has several aspects to it. We have a tremendous lighting framework for the show. We have lots of modern music written by Richard Davies for the show, and that helps to give it a very modern feel. The costumes, as I mentioned before, are also very colourful. So that visual language, visual and oral language, creates a very vibrant context for the production.
The plot combines love triangles, convoluted deceptions and disguise in what becomes a twisted but very funny comedy. Twelfth Night opens at the Playhouse tomorrow night.
The unladen gravel truck was heading west on the Pacific Highway at about 1 p.m. when the hydraulic hoist apparently operated without warning, raising the trailer into the path of the Hexham Bridge overpass. The trailer just clipped the concrete bridge, suddenly flipping the whole rig onto its side and spearing it through a set of traffic lights. The stunned driver escaped without injury, but was clearly dazed.
I don't know whether I bumped something or... I don't know.
Did it hit the bridge?
I don't know. I haven't had a look.
So 1 minute you're driving along smoothly?
Yeah, and then I'm like that.
Fortunately, the vehicle didn't travel into the path of oncoming cars. Firemen cleared a minor oil spill from the roadway. Traffic on the highway was delayed for a short while as tow truck crews salvaged the wreck.
A council worker found the woman's body amongst wrecked cars early yesterday. Her hands had been tied and clothing was wrapped around her head. Trying to cover up the crime, the tip was set alight. Local residents say the area is a haunt for people practising the occult, and there are unconfirmed reports that Suzanne Grant's body was found impaled on a stake. It's believed police investigators are today looking for a 10-month-old baby who is missing.
The Water Board's last line of defence against the slick was a boom stretched across the mouth of Cottage Creek where it emptied into Newcastle Harbour. Several other barricades placed higher on the stream were removed last night. Emergency response crews were back at work within minutes of a morning deluge which washed more oil from a previously unnoticed drain into the creek. Water Board officers have tracked the oil spill back into the suburbs of Merriweather and Cooks Hill.
That's as far as we come to where it went underground.
It's estimated that several hundred litres were poured into the stormwater system. The Water Board is convinced it was a deliberate act.
It's ongoing and it appears that the same sort of people are probably doing it because it happened 2 weeks ago. So we do consider it serious.
The Water Board has revived its Dob in a Dumper campaign in the hope that the polluter's employees or neighbours will come forward with information. Oil spills have become so common in Cottage Creek that the Water Board now has plans to put up a permanent barricade where it enters the harbour. The new barricade will also catch the constant stream of garbage which was already building up on the boom this morning. Meanwhile, in Sydney, the Land and Environment Court is about to conclude a hearing into several pollution breaches by Newcastle BHP last year. It's alleged that the company exceeded its licence limitations on a number of pollutants, including manganese, cyanide and lead, which entered the Hunter River over a 3-month period. Justice Steen is expected to retire to consider his verdict tomorrow morning. His decision could be several weeks away. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Alwyn and Helen Holt have been raising goats on their Warkworth property for just 2 years. This was to have been their first breeding season, but sometime late last week the herd was savagely attacked by dogs. 13 goats are all the Holts have left. 19 does are dead and another 2 missing.
Just dead animals everywhere. There was a few live ones in the corner just behind us there, and there was dead animals. You could see them all up through the paddock.
According to Mr Holt, the remaining goats are too exhausted and frightened to be used for breeding, and the only purebred left in the herd is not expected to survive. When Mr Holt first discovered the attack, he thought dingoes from the nearby national park were responsible. However, he soon changed his mind.
One dog with a collar on it, a Doberman cross, ran down to us quite friendly and was quite pleased to see us. I can assure you I wasn't pleased to see it.
This is the collar taken from the Doberman before it was destroyed. Police are convinced it's not the only domestic dog in the pack. Sightings, which have come from as far away as Broken Bulga, put the number of dogs at about 4. Although this is the first time the dogs have attacked with such ferocity, cattle and sheep have been disappearing from the area over the last 6 months. Afraid his herd may be attacked again, Mr Holt is taking no chances.
I've laid bait and I patrol the farm here whenever I can, of an afternoon and night, with a gun, and I can assure you any animal that I see, any dog that I see will be shot.